The Premier League 2025-26 season is starting really soon, so it's only right that I give you my predictions on what's going to happen this season. Will the three recently promoted teams go straight back down? Will Manchester United and Tottenham finish in the top half of the table this season? Especially United, they seem low-key cooked. Will Arsenal finally win the Premier League under Mikel Arteta? Will Pep Guardiola and Man City reclaim their throne? Or will Arne Slot's Liverpool go back-to-back in winning the league? Well, let's find out what I think with my predictions. And trust me, you're going to want to stay until the end, because I definitely have some crazy upsets in this video, and some giveaway information at the end as well. First, let's start off with who's finishing last in the league, 20th place. And I'm actually going to go for the recently promoted Leeds United. Look, I know they just won the championship with a massive amount of 100 points, scoring 95 goals in the process, and having the best goal difference of the league. But for me, I don't think having the best offense in the championship is enough to keep you up. As we all know, Ipswich Town got relegated from the Premier League last season, but they had the best offense from all the relegated teams, scoring the most goals with 36, and even had the best goal difference with negative 46. But despite having a fluid offense consisting of Liam Delap, who's now with Chelsea, Omari Hutchinson, Julio Enciso, who came in at the halfway point and made an impact, their defense let them down, with them just being too messy at the back, and this got them relegated. And I can kind of see a similar thing happening with Leeds United. I'm not completely convinced of their back line, of Ethan Ampadu, Rodon, and Darlow as the keeper, and even though they brought in some reinforcements like Sean Longstaff in the midfield, Gabriel Goodmanson from Lille, Jacques Bijou from Udinese as a center back, Anton Stach from Hoffenheim for 20 million euros as a defensive midfielder, the goalkeeper Lucas Perry from Lyon after financial troubles. I still don't think this is enough to keep them up. Plus, with Daniel Farke as their manager, somebody who Leeds were thinking about replacing this summer despite him winning the league, Farke is a manager who's great at getting teams promoted from the championship but not keeping them up in the Prem. Like at Norwich, for example, he failed at that, getting relegated twice.
Twice!
So for me, all the signs are pointing for Leeds United to get relegated, and that's why I have them at 20th. They're a massive club though, so if they stay up, good for them, but I just don't see it happening. Over to 19th place now, I got Burnley Football Club. That's right, two promoted teams are going straight back down in my predictions. So Burnley are a team that also did well in the championship. In fact, they also got 100 points in the league last year, only losing out on winning the league due to goal difference. However, what is important to note is that they conceded only 16 goals in the championship throughout the entire season, which means they had an extremely strong defense. And having a strong defense is essential if you want to stay up in the Premier League. However, for me, I obviously don't have Burnley staying up, despite their strong defense. And one of the main reasons for that is I just don't think they've done a good job of replacing key players that they lost in the back. Sure, they brought in Max Way from the second Bundesliga for only 4 million euros, but is he really going to be a good backup to James Trafford, a man who just left to Man City for 31.2 million euros? And this is also one of the biggest reasons why Burnley went from not conceding a single goal in the championship from late December to early March. And also, as of right now, Burnley have not brought in a center back after losing CJ Egan-Riley, who left to Marseille on a free transfer this summer. And although I think Scott Parker is a good manager who could do well in the Prem, or at least decent, I don't think he or the rest of the Burnley higher-ups, like JJ Watt, the ex-NFL star who's an owner of Burnley now, has done a good job of replacing players at the back. And that's probably one of the sole reasons how they even got promoted in the first place. Sure, they brought in two left backs in Quillan Dinche Hartman from Feyenoord and Bashir Humphries from Chelsea, and sure, they brought in a washed Kyle Walker who isn't that good anymore anyways, but those are the fullbacks, not the goalkeeper or the center back position. And although they bolstered up their attack, signed talented players like Jaden Anthony from Bournemouth for 9.5 million euros, Marcus Edwards is back on a permanent deal, Loom Chauna from Lazio for 15 million euros, Zion Fleming from Millwall, they got him back on a permanent deal this time for 8.3 million euros, etc. The attack looks alright, and their defense has been weakened, and due to a mix of these two things, I got them going back down. Sorry. Now for 18th place, am I just gonna send the three recently promoted teams back down, just like what's happening in the last couple of seasons in the Prem? I don't know, bro. That's probably the safe bet to make. But you see, a man like me, Nabuto, I like to be bold on this channel. I don't like the safe answer. I like being a hipster. So for 18th place on the last team to get relegated, I'm putting my balls to the wall, and I'm saying Brentford will sadly go back down to the championship. And here's why. Yes, they performed very well last season in the Premier League, finishing 10th place, which is why me saying they're gonna get relegated is even more shocking. But hear me out, because I feel like I have an explanation that kind of makes sense. Brentford have taken a big hit in the summer transfer window, not just players wise, and I think this will cost them a Premier League spot. So first, they lost their goalkeeper Mark Flecken to Bayer Leverkusen for 10 million euros, which is tough, but they did replace him with Kelleher, who I believe is a great goalkeeper. I've seen him perform for Liverpool, so losing Flecken isn't the worst thing in the world. But after that, it does get worse. Christian Norgard, the Brentford captain and strong defensive midfielder, has dipped to Arsenal for 11.6 million euros, strengthening another London-based club. And although yes, they did sign Jordan Henderson from Ajax, who is set to be their next captain as well, coming back to the Prem at an older age, when you haven't been here for a while, it's just too big of a gamble to say whether Hendo will be good or not. And then there's a big loss of Brian Mbeumo for 75 million euros to Manchester United, and this is going to hurt them attacking wise. They're losing their main penalty kick taker and one of their main goal scorers to another team in England. That's hard to cope with, but it's not even that, because it still gets worse. At At the time of this recording, Johan Wissa has not dipped Brentford yet, but he seems desperate to do so, and it seems like his likely destination is either Saudi Arabia or Newcastle for around 50 million euros. And I would expect him to leave the club. And also with their legendary manager in the modern era, Thomas Frank, leaving the Tottenham Hotspur, and them hiring the inexperienced at the top level manager Keith Andrews, I'm just not too sure how they're gonna cope. Additionally, their biggest signing this window was Anthony Melambo, an attacking midfielder from Feyenoord, but they already had an attacking midfielder who performed very well last year in Damsgaard. They needed to strengthen in other positions in their squad, which they haven't done so at the time of recording this video. And I haven't even seen any strong links regarding players joining Brentford that would tell me that Brentford are still planning to make new signings before the window ends, which is why making this Premier League prediction video is kind of difficult, because the transfer window doesn't finish until the end of August, which is 2 to 3 game days into the Premier League. But anyways, as of right now, if Brentford does not make another signing, and Wissa leaves along with Abuemo, who already dipped, which means Brentford just lost 2 players who got them 40 goals last season, I'm confident in saying that they're cooked. Now over to 17th place, I'm going to go for the team that won the playoff final surprisingly against Sheffield United last season. It's Sunderland, which I know I'm supposedly picking the weakest team coming up for the championship to stay up, but hear me out, I got my reasons. But before that, I did mention in the beginning of this video that I do have an information about giveaways, and I'm going to mention it more at the end, but I do have a little hint towards that. You can only win these future and frequent giveaways if you're on my Discord server and are active in the community, which we have a strong one over there. So make sure to click the link in the description and join. And also, while you're already here, make sure you're subscribed. The prediction videos coming through this year are going to be fire, so like the video and sub. Now back to Sunderland. The reason why I have them staying up is, well, shit, I low-key just want them to stay up, I'm not gonna lie. Sunderland should be a Premier League club. They would add so much more entertainment to the league. The Newcastle vs Sunderland derbies would be back, the Stadium of Light would be peak under the Premier League limelight, etc. It would just be a great time if Sunderland managed to stay up. And no, one of the other reasons why I think Sunderland will actually stay up this season is because they've been going absolutely crazy in the transfer window, and for that reason alone, I've got them staying up. Sunderland have only lost 2 decent players in my eyes this window. One is the 19-year-old left winger Tom Watson, who dipped to Brighton for 12 million euros, and the other one is of course Jude Bellingham's little brother, Joe Bellingham, who's following his big bro's footsteps and joined Borussia Dortmund for 30.5 million euros. Other than that, Sunderland have kept their team intact, and they've only gone on and signed some very good players. For example, they signed a very young and good midfielder from Strasbourg in Habib Diarra for a huge sum of 31.5 million euros, which is a ginormous amount to spend on one player from a club that recently got promoted. But then they've also signed Brian Simon Adingra, who played a key role in Ivory Coast winning the most recent AFCON. The Brighton org didn't end up panning out the way we all thought it would, but now Adingra's got a fresh start with Sunderland. Then with Sunderland somehow attracting Enzo Leffi to join them in the championship, they've now signed him permanently for 23 million euros from Roma. That's a brilliant signing. Then they signed one of the best upcoming Moroccan talents coming through, who shined at Club Brugge in the Champions League last year, and Chemsdin Tabi for 20 million euros. I was shocked to see this move happen. Then they signed DR Congo's Noah Sadiki from Union SG for 17 million euros. They signed Reinildo from Atletico Madrid for free. They just signed the highly experienced defensive midfielder from the Premier Arsenal and international experience with Switzerland, Granit Xhaka for 15 million euros from Bayer Leverkusen. There's still links to other good players like Mark Gui from Chelsea, for example, etc. Sunderland are making a ton of top moves, and on paper, these guys are looking like a very serious side and a frightening side too. Now, the 2 reasons why I don't have them higher up the table is because changing so many starting players after getting promoted is a risky move. We saw Nottingham do that and they almost got relegated, so Sunderland are also low-key playing with fire doing that as well. But also, it's an AFCON year, and Sunderland just signed a bunch of African players barring Granit Xhaka. Sadiki, Diarra, Tabi, Reinaldo, and Adingra are all Africans, and a majority of those players will probably be participating in the AFCON coming up in the middle of the season, as Sunderland are probably going to drop a lot of points when that tournament starts. But I think they'll remain strong enough to stay afloat in the Premier League. So let's go Sunderland, prove me right. On to 16th place now. I've actually gone for a club that I think will be battling relegation but also will barely survive, West Ham United. And my rationale for this is pretty simple. I simply think that they're a relatively weaker team. It's really just that. Last season was pretty poor. Yes, they finished 14th, but they would have finished much lower if Tottenham and Manchester United didn't stink it up. And I'm positive that those 2 sides will not be as bad this year. Hence why I got West Ham finishing lower in the table. Additionally, a lot of their players aren't performing at their best level. Max Kilman has low-key looked like a fraud under manager Graham Potter. Todibo doesn't look like his best form either. The experienced Max Cresswell dipped to Stoke City. Mohamed Kudus, arguably West Ham's best player, left to Tottenham for 63 million euros. And sure, they still got some great players on the team like Edson Alvarez, James Ward-Prowse, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Thomas Suchek, Nicholas Füllkrug, even Lucas Paqueta for now. I'm not really sure if he's going to leave or not. I just don't think there's going to be such a big difference in their performances that they're magically going to perform much better. Honestly, if AFCON didn't exist this year, I would have been comfortable in saying that Sunderland were going to finish higher than them. But because AFCON does exist, I'm not going to say that. Honestly, I don't got much more to add. I'm not convinced by West Ham whatsoever, hence why I got them low. At least I don't have them relegated, you feel me? Now on to 15th place we go, and I'm gonna have to go for another boring answer and say it'll be Wolverhampton Wanderers. I know these are the obvious choices, but I'm just being honest, bro. I think it'll be Wolves who finish low this year. And the reason is similar to my West Ham one. I'm just not convinced by them. It's really just that. Last season they weren't very good. They were fighting relegation for the longest time, but finished 16th and survived. However, for this upcoming season, they've lost their best player from last season who carried them, Matthias Cunha, for 74.2 22 million euros since he dipped to Manchester United. Nelson Semedo also left to Fenerbahce, Pablo Sarabia left to Al Arabi in Qatar, and Ryan Ait-Nouri went to Manchester City for 36.8 million euros. And all in return, Wolves have managed to keep Jorge Strand Larsen from Celta Vigo, got Fer Lopez from Celta Vigo as well, and signed Jean Arias, the 27-year-old Colombian who's been playing in South America all his life, for 17 million euros. That's it as of right now, and I'm not convinced by that. However, I don't think their squad is weak enough to get relegated, especially under good manager Vitor Pereira. I think he's underrated as hell. So even though they got a decent squad and a good manager, I definitely have them finishing somewhere lower on the table, hence why I got them 15th. Now let's move on to 14th place, where I might have a surprising pick to some, but I'm actually gonna have to go for Bournemouth, and here's why. Bournemouth performed very well last season, finishing 9th place, and were even on a hunt for a potential spot in Europe, in which they narrowly missed out on due to some poor results towards the later stages of the season. But still, it was a season to be proud of, with a lot of good players on the team performing under the guidance of one of the most underrated managers in the Premier League in my opinion, Andoni Iraola. But here's the problem, a lot of their top performing players are now gone. Dean Huijsen, their superstar center back, has left to Real Madrid, arguably the biggest club in the world, for 62.5 million euros, and their left back who impressed so many viewers last campaign, Milos Kerkez, got sold to Liverpool for 46.9 million euros, and replacing those two players right there is going to be mad difficult. Yes, they also lost Kepa Arrizabalaga to Arsenal, but they already signed a very good replacement in Georgi Petrovic from Chelsea for 28.9 million euros, which is great business. And they also got a new left back in Arjen Trufer, but I'm not really too familiar with this game, so I'm not going to comment on him too much. Regardless, losing top players like Huijsen, Kerkez, and maybe even Semenyo by the time September rolls around is going to be difficult to cope with. Oh, and I almost forgot, they're also probably losing somebody else. Ilyas Zabarny for the longest time has been linked to a move away to PSG, and it seems like he'll go there, so they're about to lose him as well. Bournemouth's backline is getting picked apart, except Julian Araujo. I wonder why. It's cause he's cheeks. Just kidding, I'm just salty he picked Mexico over USA. He made a mistake for real. However, despite these losses, I don't see them anywhere near relegation, especially under the good manager of Andoni Iraola. No way a manager as great as he will let the Cherries be anywhere near a relegation scrap. Plus they got my dog Tyler Adams, bruh. If he can stay fit for another whole season like he did last campaign, Bournemouth will be in decent hands. I don't see them doing as well as 9th, but 14th ain't that bad for a traditional mid-table side. Over to 13th place now, I'm gonna have to put Fulham. And this one's a pretty boring explanation, because Fulham have been a super boring side this summer. They've literally done nothing. They basically signed nobody. They were in for the American striker Ricardo Pepi earlier on in the window, but he's about to be PSV's starting striker, so I doubt he'll leave. They've also kept Raul Jimenez, so they've already got a pretty decent option up top. And they've kept most of their good players, like Emil Smith-Rowe and Jedi Robinson, who was arguably a top 3 left back in the Prem last year, etc. So for Fulham, under a good manager Marco Silva, I think they're gonna do the same old. Win some games, lose some games, and finish mid-table. And this season, it just so happens that I got them in 13th. That's it. Now over to 12th place, I'm actually have to go for a quite mundane answer again, and that's because I got Crystal Palace. That's right, I've got them finishing the exact same position as they did last year, 12th. And the reasoning is pretty straightforward. Crystal Palace is a mid-table club, and 12th is around the range where they will usually finish in the Premier League. So I've got them finishing there again. However, to give a little more insightful analysis, predicting Crystal Palace is a little tricky this year, just because a lot of the transfer business around this club actually hasn't happened yet at the time of recording this video. To my knowledge, the only player they brought in is Borna Sosa from Ajax for 2.3 million euros, and that's because they lost Jeffrey Schlupp on a free to Norwich City. That's basically it in terms of Crystal Palace's business. Now in terms of departures, the future surrounding the captain Mark Guehi is completely up in the air. He has 1 year left on his deal, and Palace has to decide whether they want to sell him this summer to Newcastle, Chelsea, Liverpool, or somebody else, or keep him for another year and let him go on a free next summer. Then there's the future around Eze, who every day is being even closer linked to Arsenal, and I can see this deal happening, which means Palace will be losing their magician in the middle of the pitch, and even Mateta, their starting forward, has links to leave the club this summer as well. However, none of the players that I just mentioned have left yet, which makes the predictions surrounding Palace quite tricky. Also, Crystal Palace are going to be in Europe this year. Yeah, Crystal Palace should have been in the Europa League, but now they're in the Conference League. But still, it's a European competition nevertheless. Also, I think playing in the Conference League is actually beneficial for Palace. They can actually win the Conference League. I'm sure Palace fans would love to win another trophy, while the Europa League is more unlikely to win. Also, for the group stages, you could rotate a lot more, and it won't affect Palace's Premier League form that much. But regardless of the European competitions and the departures, Oliver Glasner is a top coach. He led Palace to winning their first trophy or whatever with FA Cup last year, so I'm sure he'll be able to handle the obstacles and get Palace to finish mid-table once again. Now moving on to 11th place, missing out from the top half of the Premier League table just barely, I'm actually gonna have to put Everton. I know that might be a little high, I'm very aware, and here's my reasoning for that. I low-key forgot Everton existed while I was writing the script, and I'm too lazy to go back and change around my prediction order. So now Everton's stuck at 11th place on my list. Now to be fair to myself, with David Moyes coming in, they actually had a relatively strong finish to the campaign last year and finished 13th place. So 11th place is not too far off from that. Plus, they do have some top players on the team, like Ndiaye for example, while that kid is special, and they got rid of some dead weight, like Neil Maupay. I don't think he's that good. Mason Holgate is shipping to Qatar, I believe. Dominic Calvert-Lewin has now become a free agent. He's too injury prone in my opinion. And Everton did bring in some top reinforcements for their side. Well, for a club of their size, you know what I mean? Anyways, like I was saying, they brought in the talented Spanish finished by internationally representing Moroccan left back Adam Asnou from Bayern Munich for 9 million euros, Carlos Alcaraz from Flamengo for 15 million euros. There's rumors of Lyon's Malik Fofana potentially signing with Everton, but it hasn't been done yet at the time of recording this video. And then the big one, which is Tierno Berni from Villarreal for 30 million euros. Bro dished Champions League football with the Yellow Submarines for Everton. That is nasty, nasty work. Fire that agent immediately.
You're fired.
In all seriousness though, Everton's a decent side, and I think they do have the capabilities of finishing 11th place, even though the reason I even have them there in the first place is because I forgot they existed. Oops. And now over to 10th place, and I'm actually gonna have to go for quite the spicy take here, and I'm gonna have Nottingham Forest finish there. That's right, the side that almost made the Champions League last season is gonna finish in the middle of the table, and this is my reasoning. But before that, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it, and it means a lot, so thank you. And also, if you guys can, follow my Twitter and my Instagram, both on Nabuto, if you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall just to get to know you more. And also, make sure to join the Discord server, link in the description, and also follow me on Twitch. Live streams may be coming soon, so if you want to, feel free to follow my socials, like the video, and subscribe. Thank you. Okay, now back to topic. Despite finishing 7th last season and getting a Europa League spot, even though they absolutely hoed Crystal Palace in the process by snitching on them, Nottingham Forest moving like 6'9" for real, they've lost some top quality, and they've only brought in a couple of players. They lost Danilo, who went back to Botafogo, they lost Ramon Sosa, who went to Palmeiras, and the big one is they lost Anthony Elanga for 61.4 million euros, who joined Newcastle, while the only players they brought in are Jair Cunha from Botafogo, and Igor Jesus from Botafogo too. You know, the man who scored against PSG at the Club World Cup to help Botafogo pull off the upset. Yeah, that's him. Besides that, Nottingham haven't done that much crazy business. But despite Tottenham setting off a secret release clause of Morgan Gibbs White and were supposed to sign him, some other Nottingham owner, Evangelos Marinakis, prevented that deal from going through, and instead, Morgan Gibbs White signed an extension with Nottingham. And that video just looked bad to us, bruh. What if the owner was holding a knife behind his back, forcing Gibbs White to sign? Marikanis, if you're ever watching this video, that was a joke. Please, don't send the mafia after me, bro. I'm a good guy, I swear.
I'm a great guy. I'm actually a great guy.
Regardless, I think next season, Nottingham's primary focus is going to win the Europa League, as they probably see that as their ticket to qualify for the Champions League. And in return, they'll have to sacrifice some of their league form to get there, in the later stages of the season, of course. And with Nottingham potentially burning out at the same time, they'll finish right in the middle for next season. That's my logic regarding Nottingham. Now over to 9th place, I'm just going to go with my gut right now. I know it's a surprising pick for this position, but I'm actually have to go for Aston Villa. That's right, the side that just made the Champions League quarterfinals and even beat PSG in the second leg, but only lost to them on aggregate, is finishing in a non-European spot on my table. I know, I can already see the comments hating on my prediction, or celebrating if you're a Villa fan, because the streets do be calling me Jinx Buto. But listen, just hear me out. There is too much uncertainty surrounding Aston Villa right now for me to predict that they'll finish in a European spot. And sadly, with the transfer window ending after like 3 game weeks of Premier League action, I have to make a bold call surrounding Villa without knowing how their final business is going to look like, which is a bit tricky, so yeah. So my logic regarding Aston Villa is I feel like they'll struggle to balance European football and Premier League football this season, because not only do I think they'll go far in the Europa League, which they absolutely can, they're probably one of the favorites to go on and win the entire thing, especially with them having the Europa League GOAT manager Unai Emery at the helm, but also because they're losing some good players. In fact, Villa have done no business in signing players in the transfer window so far, and that's because they're currently being hoed by the PSR rules. And if that goal stood against United on the last match day that was incorrectly ruled out, they wouldn't have to worry about that, but because of that happening, they do. And also because of that, they haven't been able to sign any top players, and had to let go of Marcus Rashford and Marco Asensio, with both players being unable to sign permanent deals due to these PSR rules, I'm pretty sure. Now, I don't understand these PSR rules on a highly intellect level, because I am not a finance guy. I did one financial accounting course in college, and man, that shit was hard. I might have to take another one of those classes for my master's degree too, bro. I'm cooked. But from what I can understand, it seems like Villa need to sell before they can buy. And with Ollie Watkins being linked to Newcastle and Manchester United, and also Emi Martinez being linked with the move away, there's a lot of selling and uncertainty surrounding this Birmingham-based institution. And due to that, I can't place them higher than 9th. Sorry. Moving on to 8th place in the Premier League, a side that barely misses out on a European spot next season, I've got Manchester United. I know I am a bit biased because it's Manchester United, I'm a Liverpool fan, but to be honest, they are pretty shit, so I can't really place them higher than this. They're low-key lucky to be placed as high as 8th on my list, if we're being perfectly honest. I mean, they literally finished 15th last season, bro. That's disgraceful. Now, here's the thing with United. With the signings they've made, so like Brian Mbeumo for 75 million euros from Brentford, and Matthias Cunha signing for 74.2 million euros, and with the full preseason and season with Ruben Amorim in charge, I can see them finishing in the top half of the table. But let's keep it real. Manchester United still need to do plenty of business, because they've got a lot of dead weight in the squad that they need to sell. Like Alejandro Garnacho, for example, who I think is an overrated, cocky, wannabe Cristiano Ronaldo bum. And then there's Jadon Sancho, of course, and then like literally half their squad for real. They need to sell everybody, bro. But not only do they need to sell, they need to sign some players too. Like, I think they need a new goalkeeper. I'm not really sure if this Turkish goalkeeper is all that. And also, Andre Onana is buns. And they need a new striker up top too. Lately, they've been wanting Benjamin Šeško. Let's see if that deal goes through. But even if it does, he's still an incredibly raw player with no guarantee that he'll be a success. Unlike Ollie Watkins, for example, who is a permanently proven goal scorer. Like, United fans were slandering Liverpool signing Ekitike. But bro, Šeško literally has less goals than him last season. But to be fair, Šeško is probably an upgrade to Højlund for keeping it in stack. But regardless, United need to do plenty of business. business. But I don't see them having that bad of a season compared to last year. I think them finishing 8th, genuinely, is a step in the right direction for this club, all banter aside. But I don't think they'll be bad enough to finish in the bottom half of the table when the Premier League is basically the only competition they'll be playing in. So yeah, United's in 8th, although I would love to see them get relegated. Sorry. Well, I'm actually not that sorry for saying that, to be honest. Now moving on to 7th place, I think I'm actually aiming really high for this one, but I've gone with Brighton Hove Albion. I feel like people are not going to rate Brighton that highly this season due to João Pedro leaving to Chelsea for a hefty sum of money, and there's no guarantee that an older Welbeck is going to score the same amount of goals as he did last season. But I think Brighton is simply a well-run and likable club. I think this year it'll pay off with the Europa League or Conference League spot. Last year it was Fabian Hurstler's first season in charge of not only Brighton, but his first club in a top flight of anywhere in Europe. And now with that experience under his belt, I think he'll be much more prepared for this second Premier League season. Yeah, they lost João Pedro, which is a huge loss, but their other losses aren't even that bad. Evan Ferguson wasn't really living up to his potential, so him going to Roma isn't the worst news. Losing Estupinian to AC Milan is tough, but he was injured a lot last season to my knowledge. Simon Adingra wasn't a big player for Brighton, etc. So their losses in the transfer window have not even been that bad. Plus, they already signed their João Pedro replacement in the 18-year-old forward Charalampos Kostulas from Olympiacos for 35 million euros. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I know nothing about this kid, but the fact that Brighton signed him is making me feel pretty confident that this dude is a superstar in the making. Plus, they even signed Maxime de Kuiper, the left back from Club Brugge. I remember being impressed by him in last year's Champions League campaign, etc. So Brighton have yet again made some good moves in the transfer window. They're also much more experienced now. They still got the Go Kara Mitoma on their team. It seems like Baleba is staying for one more season, and I'm only predicting that they're gonna finish one place higher than they did last season. So yeah, that's why I got Brighton in 7th. Now moving on to 6th, I'm not sure if this is an unpopular opinion, surely it isn't, but I've got with Newcastle finishing in that Europa League spot. In fact, it can be argued that I have them a little higher than where they should be, especially with the way this transfer window is going for them. Newcastle have been taking L's left and right when it comes to transfers this summer. They did make a pretty good signing in my opinion, Anthony Elanga from Nottingham Forest for like 61.4 million euros. But that's honestly it. I mean, they did get some guy for free from Malaga named Antonieto Cordero, but I don't really know too much about him or how good he is. Now Newcastle were meant to sign way more players, but like I said, they've been taking L's non-stop. They first wanted James Trafford for the longest time because Nick Pope was low-key a liability. He's had an awful preseason so far, but Trafford went to Manchester City instead. Then they wanted to run some sort of dual striker tactic, and they went in for Hugo Ekitike for like the 3rd time, and he went ahead and chose Liverpool. And now Alexander Isak is not participating in Newcastle's preseason tour. He's on strike against the club, and now he's trying to force a move to Liverpool as well. Then it seemed like they were going to get Šeško, but now United's in the loop, and they might be the favorites to sign him instead at the time of recording this video. So as you can see, Newcastle have been getting big bro this entire transfer window, and if they end up losing Isak and them not getting their main transfer targets, and with them bouncing Champions League football, it's going to be a long season for the Magpies. However, they do have an excellent manager in Eddie Howe, and they still got some great players like Anthony Gordon, Bruno Guimaraes, Joelinton, Dan Burns, Sandro Tonali, etc. Plus, it seems like they're also going to sign Aaron Ramsdale as their goalkeeper, so that's pretty good too, I guess. So I think this side has enough quality to finish in the Europa League spot for next season, or rather this season, you know what I mean. But a Champions League spot, yeah, that might be a little bit of a stretch. Now moving on to 5th place, I'm actually going to have to go for a side that finished right above the relegation zone last season. That's right, I got Tottenham Hotspur, and that's right, they legit finished 17th place last season. I know, but you can't make too much fun of them because they did win the Europa League and are in the Champions League this season. Manchester United cannot relate, I'm afraid. Anyways, talking about Tottenham, I think they made a lot of good choices this summer. First, keeping Kuti Romero for now was absolutely necessary. He's an absolute dog in the defense, and him staying was key for Tottenham. Then the hiring of Thomas Frank. I wasn't too sure how to feel about the Ange sacking, especially after he won Tottenham a trophy, but Thomas Frank is a football mastermind nerd sort of manager, so I think he'll do just fine in the Tottenham job. Then regarding transfers, yes, they're losing Reguilon, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg to Marseille as well, and maybe even Heung-min Son at LAFC, but still overall, their team is still pretty good. They just need their guys to stay fit. And with Ange Kamikaze football being no more, I don't think Tottenham will have that injury crisis anymore. Well, at least hopefully they won't. And then regarding signings, they got Kevin Donso on a permanent deal, got Matthias Tell on a permanent deal for Bayern Munich, they signed Mohamed Kudus for 63.8 million euros. Yes, they didn't get Gibbs White in the end, but they still got time to find another cam. And no, they signed a talented 20-year-old Japanese center back from the J-League, Kota Takai, for 5.8 million euros. So Tottenham are making the right moves. There's no way they're going to finish as bad as last year in the Premier League. So yeah, I got them 5th. It's also because I think the remaining 4 teams I haven't talked about yet are so far clear of the rest. I'm not going to cap. And this is where the top 4 of the Premier League begins. And we're going to start who I got in 4th place, which is Chelsea. Now I know what Chelsea fans in my comments are going to say, but we're the best team in the world. We just won the FIFA Club World Cup. Blah, blah, blah. Come on, yo. Can we be serious right now? You might have won that competition, but Chelsea are definitely not the best team in the world. They haven't been in the top 3 best teams in the Premier League for the last couple of years too. However, what I will say about Chelsea is they are going down the right path. And the signings they made in recent years like Cole Palmer, Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo, etc., young and high potential players, and the signings that are making recently like Byro Gittins, João Pedro, Liam Delap, João Hato, the young center back from Ajax that Liverpool should have signed in my opinion, maybe even Xavi Simons, etc. Chelsea are going to be the best team in England potentially after a couple of seasons, but I don't think just yet in the 25-26 campaign, especially with them balancing the Champions League at the same time this year. A competition I'm sure that they want to go far in. But I think Maresca's done a great job job. Chelsea's squad looks good, and that's why they'll finish in 4th. It's just that as of right now, the other 3 teams left in this prediction video are better than Chelsea in my opinion, which is why these 3 teams are going to be placed higher. However, what I will say about Chelsea though is this. Clip this by the way. Chelsea for the first 2 to 3 months are going to be in 1st or 2nd place in the Premier League. But after that, as the Club World Cup and no rest fatigue starts to hit the players, alongside balancing the competitions, they'll get burnt out and finish in 4th. That's what I think will happen with Chelsea. Now moving on to 3rd place, I think this is a pretty hot take because people are assuming it'll be a Gunners and Liverpool title race, but I actually have Arsenal finishing in 3rd. Hear me out, just let me land. Arsenal might have finished 2nd last year. Well, they finished 2nd for numerous years in a row now, but you know what I mean. But while a lot of Arsenal fans think that they've taken a leap this summer and they think they're going to finish 1st, I actually disagree, obviously. I'm not as convinced by Arsenal's transfer plans this summer, and I'm not convinced regarding Mikel Arteta too. He might be the only big club manager in the world to survive 5 years and only have an FA Cup to your name. That's it. Yes, I didn't lose too many important players this summer. Sorry, Max. I like Takehiro Tomiyasu, but that motherfucker gets injured way too often. And yes, they did sign a plethora of good players, so they're already talented team. Like Christian Norgard, Christian Mosquera, Kepa, Noni Madueke for 56 million euros, which is absurd. Victor Gyökeres, the Gunners finally got a striker for 65.8 million euros. And then Martin Zubamendi, who I bet regrets not joining Liverpool since he sells for Arsenal now for 70 million euros. But even with these signings, I don't know, man. First of all, Arsenal need a left winger, bruh. They need to go after Rodrigo. He would have been perfect, but instead they splashed over 50 million euros for Madueke, another left-footed player, when Bukayo Saka is already the starting right winger. And the next right winger, Max Dauman, is coming through the academy right now. Who do they got on the left, bruh? Please don't tell me the plan is still starting Martinelli. And then with Victor Gyökeres, he scored a ton of goals in Portugal, but so did Darwin Núñez, and that man is buns. I'm not saying Gyökeres will end up like that, but I'm just saying we gotta take the difficulty of the league into account. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think these signs elevate them ahead of Liverpool for sure. And with Man City having an offseason last year, I don't really see that happening twice in a row. So for me, Arsenal's finishing in 3rd. And that brings me to 2nd place. Who do I got barely missing out on the Premier League title? Manchester City or Liverpool? And my answer is actually Manchester City. Now before the comments start wiling up and calling me Jinx Puto, just chill, let me talk about Man City first. So as we all know, Man City had a poor season to their standards last year, but with Pep Guardiola, you can never really doubt these guys. Additionally, a lot of things went wrong last year that I think you can't really bet on happening again this season. For example, Phil Foden having another offseason is a bet I wouldn't want to take, you know what I mean? Things like that, it's hard to go against Man City. Additionally, in typical Man City fashion, they spent a lot of money in the transfer window and brought in some good reinforcements. They signed James Trafford from Burnley, probably for Ederson. I mean, he's low-key been a liability recently. Ryan Cherki from Lyon. If he can resemble some of that Nations League performances with France earlier in June, City have got themselves a serious player. Ryan Ait-Nouri joined from Wolves for 36.8 million euros. He's great offensively, but still some questions defensively. And Tijani Reinders, for me, is such an underrated baller. And City have signed him for 55 million euros, which is a great signing in my opinion. So to add these players on top of City's already talented team, and the fact that City don't really have 2 off seasons in a row, especially under Pep Guardiola, I can truly see City challenging for the Premier League title, more so than Arsenal. I think it'll be close between the top 3, but I think City will have what it takes to be better than the Gunners. And that leads me to who I got winning the Premier League title, and that's my club Liverpool. Now I know what the comments are saying right now. Nabuto, how can you jinx your own club? Why would you predict Liverpool to win the title? Blah blah blah. First and foremost, I'm beating the Jinx Buto allegations this season. Calma. And second of all, I would be lying to you guys if I predicted another team to win the Premier League. Because truthfully, my heart and brain is telling me that Liverpool is gonna win the Prem. So if I came on here on this video and said Arsenal's gonna win it, I'd be lying to y'all. Because deep down inside, I don't really believe that. I truly believe Liverpool will win back-to-back Premier League titles. Genuinely. And can you blame me for thinking that? Arne Slot's Liverpool dog-walked the league when the manager legit had no signings. Then he got back this summer thanks to John W. Henry's war chest of funds. And now we've signed a superstar German talent Florian Wirtz, Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kerkez, Mamardashvili, Hugo Ekitike, and possibly Alexander Isak soon. Like, I'm sorry, with these signings, I feel pretty confident heading into the next season. If you want a more in-depth analysis on Liverpool signings though, check out this video I made about that. But back to the Liverpool prediction, yeah, I think we're looking really good, man. And I find it hard for any team to challenge the Liverpool side for the Prem. Obviously, anything can happen. A bunch of new signings might disrupt the team's rhythm, or you might have an injury crisis out of nowhere, or maybe we lose by 1 point to Man City again. Who knows? But in my opinion, I think Liverpool will win the league. Anyways, that's my 25-26 Premier League predictions. But I did want to mention the giveaway portion before I forget. I will be doing a lot of prediction videos this year, or at least that's the plan. And if you want a chance to win many giveaways that will be part of the series, make sure to join the Discord server for a chance to win gift cards and whatnot. And also, you do have to talk in the chat, bro. I have mods that will check how active users are, so don't just join the Discord server and disappear. Interact with everybody, bro. It's always a good time in there. So yeah, make sure to join. The link is in the description. And the first giveaway will happen if Liverpool lose their opening game against Bournemouth. Remember that. So make sure to join down below. But anyways, what are your guys' Premier League table predictions? Let me know down in the comments. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Also, follow my Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and join the Discord community, like I said before. All the links are in my YouTube description. And last but not least, if you want to learn about how Chelsea won the FIFA Club World Cup and want to see a hater's reaction to that, you definitely want to check out this video right here. You won't regret it.